Hey everybody, welcome back to Havoc Maker Studio. Hoping you guys had a great weekend. Last week, at least last Friday, I put up about 3 videos kind of covering some more Dragonbane RPG content, trying to keep those video counts down low. I will have some more coming out because we have another, 3 months before it comes out, August 2023. So I'm going to spread those out, little short clips. If there's anything that you're interested in from Dragonbane, even if you don't know much about the game, but from a gamer's perspective, you might have questions like, hey, how do they have creatures work with their attacks? How does world building go? Just go ahead and put those in the comments below and we'll take care of that. So today we're going to cover one of my favorite topics to be persnickety about and kind of being upset about is Warhammer 40,000. So here we are coming out with 10th edition, and yes, I'm not going to go ahead and pat myself on the back for being right about that. I've done that enough. My back's getting a little worn out from carrying the burden of being right. Though I guess I just did that, what I said I wasn't going to do. Anyways, thank me for my service. I would appreciate it. Anyway, so 10th edition was announced along with a plethora of other products coming out of Games Workshop later this year and into next year, kind of their roadmap of what's coming, not only for Warhammer 40,000, but Age of Sigmar, Old World, Warcry, so on and so forth. Throughout the week, we'll go ahead and cover those other ones. We'll do some short videos just going, hey, this looks great, this looks bad, and we'll move on. So today, what I really want to cover is my initial take after watching the stream, reading the content, and kind of making up my own opinion about this. And yes, I know in the past I've had some very hot takes that some people have gotten hot about, not in a good way. And you know what? These are my opinions on the product, their business practices from Games Workshop, and I'm going to stick by it. And I think some of you are amused by these. Some of you get a little hot under the collar, which is fine. We're all allowed to have our own opinions. So without further ado, let's dive into my top 10 hits and misses for 10th edition as of right now. It's really the top 5 hits, top 5 misses, but it's 10. So, I did some Common Core math and came up with that. So anyway, top 10 hits and misses, Warhammer 40,000, 10th edition, Leviathan is the name of the box. So, my number 5 hits, we're going to count down, is the Terminator Captain. The Terminator Captain, the only thing that I really like about it, and we'll get into more about the Terminators later on, especially in other episodes, is that it's updated from the original, so they've gotten scaled up to where they should be kind of height-wise, size-wise in relation to regular Marines, your standard Marines, and the Primaris Marines. These guys should be bigger and bulkier. What I like about this, and despite the ornamentation that's around him, like this purity seals and I forget what those little deflector guards are. They're really for when you're jousting, but whatever. There's not a lot of ornaments and doodads and widgets hanging from him, so I can appreciate that. I think Games Workshop has a really bad habit of overdoing a lot of the Marines and a lot of the Chaos Space Marines and just really a lot of their models in general. I've noticed with the Primaris lately that that's kind of been toned down, which I really appreciate. So moving on, hit or number 5 for starting off the misses is the Barbagons. And it's really not just the Barbagons, but there's so many, I think, misses miniature wise that I don't want to really dive into it. The Barbagons are, I think, the worst defender for a lot of derpy Tyranid models. The biggest issue I have with some of these models, they're not, yes, okay, they're new sculpts, they're new designs, but they're really not pushing, I think, the artists and the sculptors' abilities to really get out there. I feel like Games Workshop is restriction them. It's like, hey, we want this unit, but scaled down so we can make it a multi-model count, but something better than our small models, but smaller than our big models. That makes sense. I hope so. One of my chief complaints about this is, I feel like this thing right here is maybe the creator or whoever, not just the sculptor, but whoever might have came up with the design was like, hey, you know what? I had a three-legged dog and I miss Poopsie, and I really want to kind of do some sort of tribute to Poopsie and my three-legged dog. And that's where we get this. I think the Barbagans are just kind of derpy looking. The weird arm up there's a lot of, and I realize we're talking about an alien here, but there's a lot of movement issues that come into play with this derpy three-legged creature here, and trying to hold hold the arm up to shoot. There's all sorts of physiological mechanics that are just inherently wrong with this model. There's lack of stability. And if this is a hive mind that can generate creatures that are going to be able to be efficient battlefield units, why are they making derpiness? Things that just don't. I'm not even going to talk about aesthetically pleasing. I'm talking about the physiology of this, the physical movement that you would get out of this. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you know what? If it is a tribute to your dog, your three-legged dog, three-legged cat, one-legged bird, okay, cool. But at least come up with something a little bit more, aesthetically pleasing. I said no on aesthetically pleasing, but I'm going to go with aesthetically pleasing. Needs to be in there as well. I mean, not only do you have to have some sort of natural field of movement, but aesthetics also. So I get it. So number 4 is a hit. It's also kind of a miss, and we'll get to the miss later. This also goes with the Terminator Captain, but it's the Terminators. Once again, these are a classic model that needed to be majorly updated by Games Workshop. They've needed to be updated since 8th edition. Really, I would say 7th edition, when they started scaling up the Marines to over the original Marines and just under the Primaris, when they did that upscaling. So they needed to be updated. They've been updated for a long time. And I don't mean just with the same old Space Hulk that they put out year after year or every other year or whatever, and go, oh, look, it's a chance, don't miss out. This will never come back. And then it comes back 2 years later or a year later around Christmas time. So this model set is looking really good because it's been upscaled, and I'm guessing those are 40 millimeter bases, because that looks like a 25 millimeter base or 28 millimeter base. I think 25 millimeter base that the teleport beacon is on, which I like that version versus the original. This looks like, hey, somebody launched it from space and it lands where it anchors in. We're going to teleport on that spot. I think that is cool. The other thing about these models that just stand out is that they are simple. The Terminator is next to the Space Marine armor, is a classic vision of, brutal firepower and armor. Everything you need for it to be an armored walking tank, or the equivalent of, on the battlefield. This is it. And they do a good job of not only upscaling it, but keeping it simple. You don't need to be distracted by skulls everywhere, by tons of purity seals and doodads and widgets and whatnots. And that is the reason why I put this on the hit list, because they did a good job of giving some range of motion with these models. It makes sense, and they've kept it simple, but they still are a standout unit. All right, so for misses, my number 4 miss is the bland Marines. And this might surprise some of you, because you guys are like, John, you love Marines. Yes, I do. But these are just bland, not only from a aesthetic appearance, but also it's like, why do we need these units? We don't need more Primaris units. Where are these coming from? Oh, we've been using these for 10,000 years. We're just going to go ahead and now they're available on the battlefield. They've been rumored to be out there. Now they are. Or the Stern Guard. Why did the Stern Guard need to be upgraded to the Primaris? It does make sense. I just don't think that they need to. And they just call them Stern Guard but that's obviously Mark 10 armor. They're obviously Primaris Marines, so it should have been a different nomenclature instead of calling them Stern Guard. And there's something going on with Games Workshop where they kind of let off on calling stuff Primaris and they're just calling them Space Marines. It's almost kind of like a weird socio-ideological, not ideological, but identity politics in a certain way, in a very loose term, that they're doing with the Marines and the Primaris. And then we got the Infernus Marines, which I talked about, I'm going to say a year and a half, 2 years ago, that they were coming out alongside the heavy version of the Intercessors. Nobody believed it, and here we are late, way later than I was predicting, which that's on me. But here they are, and it's like, why do we need a whole unit of flamethrowers? We don't. Just toss a flamethrower as an upgrade into the Intercessor box. You did it with the heavy Intercessors by giving them a heavy bolter or whatever different versions are there. Why not put this in your Intercessor squads? It's not that hard. Make an upgrade sprue, sell it for $12-15 and include that on there. But here we are with, and I'm kind of in a mixed spot here because I like the simple aesthetic, but and I realize that these are monopose, but the Infernus Marines are just, there's something about them that's just irritating. They almost have a feel of some of those earlier, I want to say 5th, 6th, or even 7th edition snap fit models. These don't feel like Primaris Marines. There's just something about it. And plus, why do they got the stupid handle on top? To fan the flames. That is not a stable handhold to use a flamethrower. Holding underneath, that is much more stable. Why they do that is beyond me. It is beyond me. So, and then looking at the Stern Guard, and just stop it with the tassets. Okay, Games Workshop, please. That's the little, or tabard. I think they're supposed to be tabards. They also look like tassets. It's the little cloth that dangles down in between. And yes, I can see that it's on their midsection, but it looks to me more like a tasset. That's the little dangly cloth there. And capes. And I looked back at that. Captain, capes and tassets, just get rid of it. From an actual Marine, not a Space Marine, but an actual Marine. And I can probably guarantee you that every trooper, every Marine, every sailor, anybody that's been carried battle gear around, that is even just training exercises, having all this extra equipment, all this extra little doodads and whatnots dangling around is not only irritating, but it's problematic. And I realize these guys are superhuman. They're, in power armor, they're super strong, even outside of the power armor, but it's pointless, and just like they say in that the Invincibles, is it the Incredibles? Sorry, the Incredibles, no capes. It's so stupid looking, in my opinion. So let's go on to hits. This is the number 3 spot. Besides all the blandness and the kind of the derpiness, they have some unique sculpts. So it shows that Games Workshop is allowing for people to kind of go beyond the kind of boring copy and paste, rinse and repeat, like the Infernus Marines and the Stern Guard, and allow some creativity. And this thing, the Neuro Tyrant, I think is not the little floaty head things. I think that those are too bland. They're too derpy. But the Neuro Tyrant is very unique. And I mean, I could see this being used on or in other games, other sci-fi games, because get rid of that high feet Leviathan paint scheme and go for something a lot more natural and creepy looking, and you're going to have something that can kind of cross-platform into other game systems. And it's so cool looking, and I hate the most Tyranid models, but this one really sticks out. There's a great flow to it. The big brain thing that they did a great job as a center, all your focus goes on that, and then you see the horrifying thing underneath. This is a very good sculpt. Well done. I really like that. All right, miss number 3. So we're getting down to the end here. So Waste of Space Core rulebook. Not to mention, I'm not going to really talk about the little booklet that comes in there, the cards, or the transfer sheet. Woo, transfer sheet. There's a lot of 3D sculpting stuff out there that you can get to add onto your Marines that is a lot better than putting on decals, in my opinion. Now, the issue with the core rule book, just like every core rule book before them, is the size. Approximately 3/4 of every core rule book is half-ass fluff or lore. So you're looking at a couple paragraphs, maybe 2 pages of lore about the universe, about the different factions, and then that's about 1/4 of the book, right? And then about half of the book is art gallery of all their miniatures, going, hey, thank us for our service for painting up all these models and putting it out here that you're going to see repeated when you buy your overpriced core rulebook, which are now around $55. Who knows? I have a feeling Games Workshop might up that price again with this edition. This is an excuse to go, hey, we're doing better quality stuff, quote, and now it's going to be $60 for your Army book. So you're going to need, I think the core rule book is going to be $70. So a $70 rule book plus a $55 to $60 Army book, and eventually, and and that right there is $130 just for 2 books that will be replaced in 3 years. And some of you earlier armies, like the Space Marines, which will be one of the first books to come out, is likely going to be replaced before the end of 10th edition. So it's a waste. It's a waste. Because at the end of the day, once you get rid of that 3/4 stuff, only about 100 pages, the last quarter of these books, is the rules. You look at virtually any other game system. I'm not talking about tabletop RPGs who get rules bloat sometimes, but you look at virtually every other tabletop game system, and they have very small rule books, very thin rule books, maybe 100 pages. And that's all you need. That's all we want. I would say the vast majority of Warhammer 40,000 gamers only want just the rules. I don't need that junk. I just need the rules. I see it on your page. You blast it everywhere on the Warhammer community page, your Facebook page, your Instagram, all the different pages. I can see the art. Or not the art, but I can see the miniature gallery. I don't need it. And we know that you're going to just stuff that miniature gallery in our rule book, overcharge us because you're adding all these additional pages in there, these bright, brilliant colored pages in there for no reason. We don't need it. Just give us our rules, which also comes back to, and we'll cover it in another video, the way they do their army books and their indexes, but we'll cover that later. So this one is really a persnickety one for me. I really do not like this. So hit number 2 is the unique sculpts. Once again, Games Workshop is continuing and to kind of upgrade what's available. Now, the Terminators are an upgrade. They're not a unique sculpt. They're just upgraded. But Games Workshop finds ways, and thank God this isn't a lieutenant, though there is a lieutenant in the box. They find ways to make something unique out of an already established unit. And this is an updated version of the apothecary, but it's more like a geneticist. They go out on the battlefield, collect samples, I don't know, detonate gene bombs or whatever doodads that they have there in their left hand. And I like this, because it's a Marine. I really like the Gravis armor, but I like that we're updating or upgrading the existing units like the apothecary into the Gravis armor. And I would not be surprised if we have a chaplain in Gravis armor this edition. The Gravis armor is very, very popular. We're seeing a lot more units with it now. And that's what I like about this. The other thing I like about this new sculpt right here, this whatever apothecary biologist or whatever, is that despite him being a specialist, and he does have some doodads and whatnot around there, he is not overburdened with the widgets and the doodads and whatnots. There's not tons of skulls everywhere. He doesn't have things dangling from every belt. They've kept it relatively simple outside of some tools of the trade. And that is another one of those things that kind of draw me to this. It's a good sculpt. They kept it simple, and I can appreciate that. All right. Myth number 2, we're almost done. Myth number 2 is the fear of missing out. There's other versions of this little acronym there, but it's Games Workshop has had a problem in the past, and supposedly they put all the blame on one guy or one gal, one person, for messing up the past 2 years worth of releases. You would think after some 2 years worth of bad releases, kind of starting with Cursed City, the first release of it, and a few before that, you would have adjusted over 2 years, but you didn't. You didn't, Games Workshop, and now you're putting all the blame on a one person who you've supposedly filled the new position for, and everything's going to be golden. I don't think so. I don't trust you, Games Workshop. You like to do this, and then we get to deal with scalpers. The fear of missing out is, hey, if you don't get this now, it'll never be available again. Well, let me tell you guys right now, you're not going to miss out. This is going to be the core box or starter box for 10th edition for 3 years. And I say 3 years because that's where we're at now. We've gone from, like 5, 6, 7 years. Now we're down to 3 years per edition. And that was kind of starting from 8th edition to 9th edition, now to 10th edition. So in 2026, don't be surprised when we have the 3rd edition. Could be 2027, but Games Workshop has an issue with this stuff, and we'll talk about that later, of course. But you're not going to miss out. And the scalpers are going to take this box, and they're going to jack up the price, or they're going to break down the pieces. And if that's what you really want, guys, if this is really what you're looking for, right? Or not this, but maybe you're looking for specific models, there's going to be people on eBay or in your local stores. Pay attention to this. In your local stores that are probably going to get multiples of these boxes, they're not going to need all the content. They're going to end up with 2 or 3 core rulebooks. So just say, hey man, I'll give you $40 for the core rulebook instead of the 70, because they are getting these books at a discount by being in this box. Or give them $60. There you go. You got your book. You're helping your buddy out, and maybe he'll toss in some freebies along the way. But this stuff is going to be available locally, which I always say, go to your local store, support them before you support Games Workshop. And then look at eBay. Once again, if you can't go to your local store, go to eBay. I'm not saying go out and buy these overpriced, ridiculous scalper prices. You don't have to do that. You can pick and choose the models or just wait. All right. Don't rush out and waste your money. All right, moving on. So hit number 1. So we're almost done. The hit number 1 is this box. The contents of this box is pretty amazing. This is one of the largest boxes they've done. Over last year's box, last year, 3 years ago, or less than 3 years ago, 9th edition, which had 62 models. Don't quote me on it. I want to say it was 62 models. This one is sitting at 72, so we're getting 10 more models. Now, it's I think this box is better for the Tyranid players, because that looks more like a full starting army, because you're getting multiple HQs, multiple what we're assuming are troop choices, heavy choices, and elite choices, maybe even fast attack. On the flip side, the Space Marines, there are at least 2, the captain and lieutenant, maybe the apothecary is another HQ. You have 1 core, I'm assuming a core unit, which is the Infernus squad. So that's 10 guys. That could be 2 5-man squads. So you do have a core. And then you have your Stern Guard, the Terminators, and the Dreadnoughts. So you're rounding out your elites and your heavy support, which that's not a lot. And I get they have to kind of make it a balance. But overall, this is more of a good deal for the Tyranids than the Space Marines. So if you just want the Space Marines, I can almost guarantee you, if you jump on it right away and you start start wheeling and dealing now, get some guarantees, or you jump on the eBay bandwagon now, right? You do it now, and you start going making pre-order sales for the individual pieces of Tyranids, you'll probably make your money back for the box. The contents, I think, are really good. We still don't know the price yet, but we know the last edition, I want to say, was 190 or 200, 210, something along that lines. I imagine it's going to be about $210. If it's over 250, I probably won't get it. Even though it's still a deal, I kind of did a rough price point, what models that are what we have relatively close examples of. This is about an $800 box minus any percentage changes due to them being probably monoposes without a lot of options. But still, even that aside, is around an $800, $700, $800 box. Even $600 if we want to go that. So you're going to be saving, I would say, at the very least, 50% of the box, probably closer to 70% on the box if it's around between $200 and $250. So I think it's a overall good deal, especially if you split it with somebody. If you both buy a box, you both can double up on its contents, whichever side you want. You both get a rule book and all the other snazzy doodads and whatnots. So there's a very good opportunity here for you, as usual, with these boxes. All right, let's get to my number one miss and my number one gripe. This is going to be over a 10-minute video, guys, because there's a lot. I should probably have made this 2 videos instead of 1. All right, the release schedule. I hate this. All right, so here's what's going on. Well, as you can read here, Leviathan is summer 2023, probably July. And alongside this is going to be the release of index cards or index books, which I think is cool. That's kind of what they did with 8th edition, not so much 9th edition, but 8th edition when that came out. And I think that's where they should just stop. I think that we've seen that with other RPGs, other tabletop games, where they just give out this huge index of all the rules for the different factions, and that saves money for not only the company but more importantly the customers, and the customers can turn around and buy more models and get into more games. But Games Workshop has this horrible issue with over bloating you, over stuffing you, whatever, overflowing you. I'm not sure which over rule I'm looking for here, but just blasting you with so many books that you need, and then re-updating those books. And so when we look at this, there'll be the core rule book, and then we'll get annual FAQs at the very least. We'll get updates in the chapter approved. So every year they do updates to fix their mistakes, and that all those updates online, which will be free. Oh, thank you so much for giving us free FAQ updates for your crap rule system, or broken, not crap, but broken. They'll also do that for the codexes, and that is a huge problem that Games Workshop has with their rule set. First, they're never really balanced. And when it comes to the codexes in the beginning are golden in the beginning. And then by halfway through, they fall on the wayside. And then they need rules balancing. And they do that for free, which thank you for doing rule balancing, or those rules are updated in the chapter approved, which you have to spend another $30, $40 on each year if you want to have all that updated stuff. Stuff that should just be free. Those updates to the armies should just be free. And if they put out a giant index book, like, hey, here's the Space Marine index book, because there's so much in there, and you could put all the different chapters in there. You can go, here's an Imperium book, here's a Xenos book, here's the Chaos book. Done. Call it a day. And then you could, if you need to, they could update that, going, hey guys, we are at the halfway point. We've got all the indexes out, and you guys are loving it. All the feedback has been great. We're going to go ahead and update this maybe halfway through, so a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and this will help us extend 10th edition beyond our 3-year waste of time and money replacements. So I might be a little angry about this. So we look at the roadmap. So we'll have the indexes, but everybody's going to suffer because of their slow release schedule, right? So by the end of this year, we should have 4 codexes for Warhammer 40,000, which will be Adeptus Mechanicus, the Space Marines, the Tyranids, and the Necrons. So by the end of the year, we're going to have 4 books. The other, 16, 18 codexes are going to fall by the wayside. You're going to be screwed. So if you play these armies, you are going to be in a very wonderful golden moment. If you are one of those people that have been playing, this is my army, but I also have a Space Marine army or a Tyranid army, you are going to be in luck because you are going to ride that overpowered newness for a long time, probably until next year, probably until we get to the Orcs and Adeptus Custodes. Tau, I don't think you're going to go anywhere unless there's so many things wrong with the Tau. I'm not even going to go into it. Chaos Space Marines at the end of spring, or probably, I'd say about the end of spring. So this is their issue, is that they're not putting out enough books. They should be putting out, when they release, say, Space Marines, an Imperial book, since there's more Imperial stuff, they should be putting out a Xenos or a Chaos alongside it. They should be doing 2 books a month, minor releases, called a day. So they've got some issues with this release schedule because it's bad for, I don't care about the tournament scene, but it's bad for everybody that's playing against, of course, the ones with the new hotness. And this could be solved right off the bat by having all the rules in one index. And if they would take more than 3 years, they could spend 1 extra year going, hey, let's go through all the armies. Let's make sure they're all balanced. All the data sheets are all balanced. We're going to put them in the index. We're going to sell the index. We don't have to worry about wasting money, our money and our customers' money on the core rule books by putting a balanced rule set and a balanced data cards for all the characters. And what they could even do that other games are doing is include the data sheet, the updated rules in the box set that the models are coming with, right? Or sell a pack. If you don't want to sell a book, sell a pack. Here's all the cards, just like they do with the battle tomes for Age of Sigmar, but they still put out the battle tones of that, which is still pointless. Get rid of the books, use those little data cards. It's so much easier to use and manipulate. We see that with other games, and it's working so much better than what Games Workshop is. Games Workshop biggest problem here, since I've gone way too long over this in this section, is another problem is the way they're stuck in their old mechanic system. Yes, they're making some new changes to the mechanics, but it's some new changes, not a new rule set, something updated. They're still using an archaic business model, very British, I would say, very British, of sticking with something like, oh, this is tradition, blah, 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 blah. And we're going to stick with this, even if other people are doing a better job with newer rule sets and releases and all this other stuff. Games Workshop's really bad about that, and they should be ashamed of themselves, but they're not, because they're British. It's a very British thing. So all that aside, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for sticking around for this very long-winded one. I will have some more videos coming out later this week, and we will be breaking down the other Warhammer Fest. There's a couple Kickstarters for some other, I think, some looking to shape up to be better games. We're going to take a look at Apex Legends board game / skirmish game, which looks pretty amazing, and a few others. And those will be, I'm going to be aiming for those 10-minute videos. We'll see how that goes. Anyways, thanks once again. You guys have yourself a wonderful day, and I'll chat with you later. See ya.